For sure. Yeah. And for me, right. I mean, the big thing. So my folks split when I was 6. My dad had a couple of affairs, and uh, and then he was completely not present for most of my life. Still isn't. Um, so that was my whole thing of processing a divorce. Like, oh shit, I don't want to be this guy.
Right.
But being able to say, or I could go through a divorce and be a present father, be a better father.
Right.
I could go through a divorce and have a healthy relationship with my ex. I can go right. I can
Mhm.
do all of these things and come out very, very still don't do. I can still avoid the things he, but knowing what it is I was actually accomplishing, or it gave me the intentionality to do all of the right things.
100%. And there it is, the intentionality.
Mm.
Because the only thing in the known universe that we can control is the area of focus that we select. So if we select as our area of focus prohibitive thinking, we just committed to an anti-goal, a goal without end.
Yeah.
And we never know if we ever got there. And the stress and the self-scrutiny and all the things that come from that, they stay with us the entire time.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're intentional and you acknowledge the prohibitive thought, I mean, it's real, right? We're not pretending that it's not there. But after we acknowledge it, we're intentionally moving that thought to the affirmative side and say, okay, I aspire to be the kind of person who is faithful in my relationships. I aspire to have a healthy divorce process and negotiate a post-divorce relationship with my ex. I aspire to be a present and engaged father. The difference between that thinking and I don't want to be my father could not be bigger.
Oh.
And that's everything, right? Because with that area of focus, where the mind goes, the ass follows. Now you're doing things affirmatively that are consistent with your values. This is what I want. This is who I am.
Oh.
And that was
freaked me out. Totally freaked me out.
Yeah.
No, that was I think that was session 1.
Right.
Where we went, like, you laid some shit. It was just nonstop. And I remember I went home and I just started writing it all down because my memory is terrible.
Like the rest of us.
Well, no, mine's pretty bad.
Yeah.
This point is, and I think you gave me probably some homework and shit to because I was struggling to find even the any affirmatives in it.
Right.
Initially.
Right.
But yeah.
Most people do,
Anyway.
by the way, because we're actually programmed and socialized to think prohibitively, and not to disparage any, let's say, religious orientation or monotheistic religion, but think about the Old Testament and Christian theology, for example. I mean, it's all about prohibitive thinking. Thou shalt not. So to be successful, you should not do this, 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 and this. Then you get to the New Testament and it's a completely different language.
Mm-hmm.
I think, honestly, I'm not a biblical scholar. I don't play one on TV. I don't aspire to be one, but I think that much of the New Testament is an example of affirmative thinking in a way, right? But my point is, the agents of socialization, our teachers, our coaches, our parents, or whatever, they train us to think in terms of what you don't want to happen. Don't be that guy. Don't do this in life, right?
Don't do this, and if you do, there's punishment.
There's punishment, there's consequence, and then from there, there's what? There's shame, there's guilt, and there's fear. And when we operate from a place of fear, we damage our self-esteem. When we operate from a place of fear, we have artificial restraint upon us that prevents us from being our authentic selves and becoming whatever it is that we want to become.
Yeah.
It's anti-freedom, actually, prohibitive thinking is. I think about one of my favorite quotes from Abraham Lincoln when he was talking about what freedom is. And he said, freedom is to be unencumbered by artificial restraint. There is no greater artificial restraint than fear. And the originator of fear is prohibitive thinking. And that's why in the first meeting we have, or in the first session I have with psychotherapy clients, and I talk so much about we have to do the heavy lifting. We were talking about it's not about how you feel, it's about how you think. Because how you feel is a consequence of your thinking, right? Feelings are real, feelings matter, feelings are not facts. And feelings, our affective state, come from what happens when we think and believe as we do, because that thinking and those beliefs influence our communication, influence our behavior, and therefore affect patterns of interaction. When those things produce negative results or conflict, we then feel like shit.
Yeah.
We feel lost, confused, angry, stressed, frustrated, sad, all the things. Right. So if we come in saying, well, I feel all these things, I say, okay, I respect that, I get that. Now let's talk about how you're thinking. And when we start with prohibitive affirmative thinking, that's one of the very first steps towards pattern disruption, which is the hardest thing for human beings to do. It's why therapy exists, why consulting exists, to help people disrupt patterns. And when our thinking changes, our behavior and communication can change. And then that affects how we feel. We feel better.